Hey guys, Games Overlap here. Today I want to remind you of a small, not very well known game, Skyrim. Oh wait, you've heard about it. Yeah, I was just joking. We all played it. So-called RPG, Dovahki, dragons, and of course the endlessly memed stealth archer. Today I want to prove something very specific to you. Skyrim's dragon design pushes players toward the stealth archer archetype not by choice, but by poor core encounter design. Let's dive deeper so I can explain what I mean by that. As we all know, the stealth archer joke exists for a reason. Even when you try other builds, the temptation is always there. Warriors stop swinging axes on bandits and start chopping wood for their arrows. Mages putting their hands on bound bow spells start questioning their life choices. Why does this keep happening? Let's look at some data which I collected here. What you're seeing now are 10 recorded attempts of my character. A two-handed warrior in light armor fighting the fierce scripted dragon encounter Mirmulmir. Difficulty is set to legendary. And yes, my Skyrim is heavily modded, but none of my mods alter dragon AI or behavior. Each sample is measured from the moment combat starts, counting time when the dragon is landed and interactable for melee, versus time spent flying, circling, or being unreachable. This data was not cherry picked, it was recorded sequentially as the encounters happened. I believe I was being generous. I counted running toward the dragon as active time. And keep in mind this was a very favorable setup. Wide open terrain so dragon can land frequently. White vanguards who shoot him with their arrows. Irilet, an essential NPC who cannot die and as well has ranged damage options. A Khajiit caravan was passing by engaging with this event, adding TPS. This wasn't a worst case scenario. This was best case for Dragon. And what about the results? The numbers are honestly hard to ignore. On average, 67% of the encounter is passive time, where the dragon is simply not interactable for a melee build. What's worse is the inconsistency. The lowest passive time was 48%, the highest was 86%. And this is where numbers turn into actual player frustration. In one encounter, I stood there for almost 2 full minutes without any real window to act. Now let's define something important. RPG stands for role playing game. The most basic archetypes are warrior, mage, and thief. Skyrim even acknowledges this through the first standing stone you encounter. Even perks backgrounds are switching between red, blue, and green to separate these archetypes' perk trees. We can assume developers design game with having such idea in mind. And this is where Skyrim breaks its own RPG promise. A core enemy type cannot have 67% non-interactive uptime for entire archetypes. That's not challenge. That's absence of gameplay. You might argue this mainly affects warriors. So let's talk about mages. Yes, mages have better uptime than melee, but still far less than archery. Destruction magic has magica costs, reduced regeneration in combat, hard range limits, and doesn't scale damage as other damage sources. Magica regenerates at roughly 1% per second in combat. A lightning bolt, for example, cannot reach a flying dragon at many distances. A bow can. Even if you miss, you're still playing. You're still interacting. This is not about player skill. It's about who is allowed to participate. Warriors have additional problems. If you've ever played in third person, you probably noticed that large enemies disappear. That's a known vanilla Skyrim bug. It requires mods like SSA display tweaks to fix. Bethesda never fixed it. Then there are kill moves. On higher difficulties, you can be one or two shot. When that happens, the game often triggers a kill move. From a design perspective, this is what Bethesda calls player feedback. During a kill move, you cannot dodge, heal, block, or stagger the enemy. You just watch. Without the kill move animation, you would still have some agency. That's why I use violence mode to disable enemy kill moves. Otherwise, high difficulty melee combat becomes tedious in the worst possible way. Now let's talk about TTK, time to kill. This interacts directly with dragon uptime. In towns, this becomes especially painful. Let me give you a very common scenario. You arrive in Riften to trade with the blacksmith. A random dragon encounter starts. The fight lasts 3 minutes. Most of that time you're standing and watching the sky. Sometimes dragon will land on the roof of the building of NPC home, which you can't reach with your sword or axe. So you're forced to watch how NPCs, guards, are rescuing their town. The dragon finally dies, and half the town is dead with it. So you decide to reload, repeat the encounter, pray to RNG that fewer NPCs die, or reload an earlier save and lose your progress. Is this good design? I leave that question open. And here's the truly ironic part. The first shout you unlock is Fus Rota, unrelenting force. Why not Dragon Rend? Dragon Rend forces dragon landing. Seriously, this would be the cheapest systemic fix available. But even better would be a full encounter redesign. Right now, dagger roaches, assassins, berserkers, paladins, warriors, they all spend massive chunks of encounters doing nothing. Some encounters were actually fine. When passive time dropped below 60%, I was happy. When I hit 40%, it felt a bit too easy. But it was pure luck. If this behavior were consistent, predictable, clearly signaled, we could work with some phases. Instead, we get chaos. This is why stealth archery is meta. Most effective tactic available. Not because it's fun, not because it's immersive, but because it has range, low cost, it avoids kill moves, and boredom. This was not your choice. It wasn't mine either. It was a design funnel. Poor combat systems, disappearing enemies, kill moves, dying NPCs. Bethesda pushed us there. If you agree, let me know in the comments. If you disagree, I genuinely like to hear why. Like, subscribe, because this is just the beginning. Skyrim has a lot of topics that deserve digging into. Thanks for your time, and I really appreciate it.